Something just happened inside the walls of Buckingham Palace that nobody, not the press, not Parliament, not even the most seasoned royal correspondents saw coming at this speed. King Charles III, a man battling a still active cancer diagnosis that has rattled the very foundations of the British monarchy, has just signed an extraordinary order, one that formally elevates Catherine, Princess of Wales, to the role of sole guardian of the crown jewels. Not shared guardianship, not ceremonial access. Sole guardian, the crown jewels. 23,578 precious gemstones, including the breathtaking imperial state crown set with 2,868 diamonds alone, the legendary Cullinan diamonds, the historic St. Edward's crown, priceless orbs, scepters, and regalia that date back to 1661 are now officially in Catherine's hands. And the timing of this, that's where things get very, very interesting. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you will not look at the British royal family the same way again. The King's health, the clock nobody is ignoring. Let's start with the undeniable foundation of everything happening right now inside the palace walls. King Charles III is sick, not in the vague, dismissive, he's getting older kind of way. We're talking about an actual cancer diagnosis discovered in early 2024 when Charles underwent what was supposed to be a routine procedure for an enlarged prostate. During that operation, doctors found something nobody expected: cancer. Buckingham Palace, as is its custom, declined to specify the exact type. What they did confirm was that it was not prostate cancer, which means something else was found, something separate, something that forced the King of the United Kingdom to step back from his public facing duties almost immediately. For months, the world held its breath. Then, in December 2025, came a video message that Charles delivered on Channel 4's Stand Up to Cancer broadcast. In it, the King said, and I want you to hear these words carefully: "Thanks to early diagnosis, effective intervention, and adherence to doctors' orders, my own schedule of cancer treatment can be reduced in the new year." The world exhaled slightly. But here's the critical phrase that most headlines buried: reduced, not ended. His treatment is being reduced. Not completed, not cured, not finished. His cancer, according to palace sources, is not in full remission. That distinction, that critical, uncomfortable distinction, has filtered into royal briefings where insiders have described the King's health as, quote, precarious. Now ask yourself this: if you are a king who knows your health is precarious, what do? You protect the crown, the power transfer. Nobody fully understood. Let's rewind for a moment, because the crown jewels announcement didn't happen in a vacuum. It is the latest and perhaps most dramatic in a series of extraordinary power transfers that King Charles has been quietly, and now not so quietly, executing. Here's what most people missed. In June 2025, in what royal journalist Richard Palmer called one of the most significant constitutional moves of the current reign, King Charles officially invited Prince William and Princess Catherine to become grantaires of royal warrants beginning in spring 2026. For those who don't know what that means, and most people outside the UK don't, let me explain just how monumental this is. A royal warrant is what the British monarchy calls the gold standard of endorsements. It is the official royal seal of approval. Since he ascended to the throne in 2022, King Charles himself has been the one to decide which businesses receive this honor. Him and Queen Camilla alone, nobody else. Until now, by inviting William and Catherine into this role, Charles did something no monarch has done with a prince and princess of Wales in living memory. He handed them real monarchical power ahead of schedule. And Catherine, she didn't just receive a new role. She made history in the process. Catherine, Princess of Wales, became the first Princess of Wales to grant royal warrants in 116 years. The last one, Queen Mary, and she held the title before 1910. Even Princess Diana, the most beloved Princess of Wales in modern memory, never had this power. Let that sink in. Not even Diana. But wait, if you think that's significant, what happened next is the part that sent shock waves through royal circles. Before we go further, I want to ask you something directly. Do you think King Charles is preparing to step back from the throne, possibly for good? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Yes, no, or not yet. Because what we're about to tell you is going to inform how you answer that question. The tiaras, the jewels, and the message they send. In the world of royal monarchy, symbolism is everything. Every jewel chosen, every tiara placed on a head, every piece of regalia displayed in public carries a message. The royals know this, their dressers know this, their communications teams know this. Nothing is accidental. So when the Princess of Wales appeared at the German state banquet at Windsor Castle on December 3rd, 2025, wearing a tiara that had not been seen in public in 20 years, a tiara that had previously been worn only by queens, not queens in waiting. People who study the monarchy for a living stopped in their tracks. Catherine wore the Indian circlet, one of the most historically significant pieces in the royal collection. This is a tiara with deep roots in British royal history. It was a favorite of Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. After her death, Queen Elizabeth II wore it only once at a banquet in Malta in November 2005. Then it went back into the vault for 2 decades until Catherine. Royal sources were not subtle about what the choice meant. A source told US Weekly at the time, "The message they are sending out is that the monarchy is healthy regardless of what happens with the king, regardless of what happens with the king." That phrase alone deserves its own moment of reflection, and the broader pattern is impossible to ignore. Over the past few years, Catherine has been steadily, deliberately, and with clear palace authorization, wearing pieces of the crown collection that have never before been worn by someone in her position. Tiaras historically reserved for queens, necklaces loaned from the queen's personal collection, brooches with centuries of royal history. Royal jewelry expert and blogger at the Court Jeweler noted that Catherine has over the past 15 years built an undeniable reputation for, quote, breathing new life into the crown jewels, making the oldest and most historic royal jewels feel youthful and contemporary. This isn't vanity. This is preparation. The crown jewels themselves what she's now guarding. Let's talk about what is actually at stake here. Because many people think of the crown jewels as pretty trinkets kept under glass for tourists. They are not. The crown jewels are the single greatest working collection of royal regalia on the planet. They are housed in the Jewel House at the Tower of London, a fortress that has stood for nearly 1,000 years. The collection contains over 23,578 gemstones, and its monetary value is considered quite literally incalculable. Among the most significant pieces, the imperial state crown, the crown worn by the monarch after the coronation ceremony, when processing out of Westminster Abbey. It holds 2,868 diamonds, 273 pearls, 17 sapphires, 11 emeralds, and 5 rubies. Within it sits the legendary Cullen and 2 diamond cut from the largest gem-quality rough diamond ever found. Also embedded within it is the Black Prince's ruby, a 170-carat red spinel with a history stretching back to the 14th century, and the Stuart sapphire linked to King Charles II himself. The St. Edward's crown, the actual coronation crown made in 1661, used only for the moment of crowning. King Charles III wore it at his coronation on May 6, 2023 at Westminster Abbey, the first coronation in 70 years. The sovereign's orb and scepter, symbols of divine authority and earthly power, respectively. The scepter contains the Cullinan I, also known as the Great Star of Africa, the largest colorless cut diamond in the world at 530 carats. The Kohinoor diamond, one of the most controversial stones in the collection with origins in India and a history intertwined with empire and conquest. In January 2026, 3 new items from this priceless collection were put on display in the Crown Jewels exhibition at the Tower of London for the first time. Managed by historic royal palaces as part of the Royal Ceremonial Dress Collection. These are not just treasures. They are the physical embodiment of the British Crown's legitimacy, authority, and continuity. Whoever guards them guards something far more powerful than diamonds. And now that person is Catherine, the abdication whispers growing louder. This is the part of the story where things get uncomfortable for the palace, and where we have to be very precise about what is confirmed and what is being whispered. What is confirmed? King Charles's health remains a live concern. His cancer is being treated, not cured. Palace aides have publicly acknowledged that William and Kate have been, quote, fast-tracked into roles that would normally come only with the throne itself. What is being whispered? The succession timeline is no longer theoretical. In March 2026, insiders quoted by Jubilee Cast made a claim that sent royal watchers into a frenzy. One insider stated without palace denial that internal discussions about succession timing are no longer hypothetical. Another claimed that King Charles may step aside in a matter of weeks, with some pointing to Trooping the Color as a possible final major public appearance, describing it as giving the king one last grand hera on the balcony before handing over. There has been no public announcement, no constitutional motion, and no palace confirmation of any abdication timeline. Let's be absolutely clear about that. But here is what is confirmed. William has been conducting investiture ceremonies. He has been hosting high-level state receptions. He has been carrying out meetings on behalf of the king, duties that have throughout British royal history fallen to the monarch alone. One insider was blunt about what this all means. This is a very significant step. It gives William and Kate real monarchical power earlier than usual and signals that they are being fast-tracked for the top job. And now, with Catherine being named sole guardian of the crown jewels, the most symbolically powerful objects in the entire British royal tradition, we have to ask the question that everyone in royal circles is already asking in private. Is King Charles preparing to hand over the crown itself? Pause for just a second and think about this. The crown jewels have existed in their current form since 1661. They survived the English Civil War. They survived 2 world wars. They've been guarded by monarchs and their appointed custodians for over 360 years. King Charles has now placed that responsibility in the hands of Catherine, a woman who 10 years ago was still being dismissed in some circles as just Kate Middleton from Berkshire. What do you think that says about how King Charles sees the future of the monarchy? Type it in the comments. We genuinely want to know what you think. Catherine's remarkable journey and why she was always ready. Let's talk about Catherine herself for a moment, because the narrative of Catherine as a reluctant royal who stumbled into greatness is a lazy one, and it is increasingly, unmistakably wrong. Catherine Elizabeth Middleton was born on January 9, 1982, in Reading, Berkshire. Before she became Princess of Wales, she had already demonstrated a work ethic and instinct for duty that even her harshest critics could not dismiss. Before her marriage to William in 2011, she played a hands-on role in her family's business, Party Pieces, not as a figurehead, but as a genuine contributor. Her mother, Carol Middleton, has spoken publicly about how Catherine built entire product lines and managed catalog production herself. Then came the cancer diagnosis. In January 2024, Catherine underwent abdominal surgery, the specific nature of which was kept private. It was only in March 2024 that she revealed in a deeply personal video message that moved the world that she had been diagnosed with cancer. She was receiving preventative chemotherapy. For months, the nation and the world watched and waited. She returned quietly, bravely, purposefully. By the end of 2024, she was back in public view. In 2025, she was declared to be in remission, and she did not slow down. She attended major state events. She made her first major speech in over 2 years at the Future Workforce Summit in London in November 2025. She wore Queen-level tiaras. She stood beside a visibly ailing king at events where the symbolism of continuity was impossible to miss. Royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams, speaking to GB News, described Catherine as, quote, the key for the royal family, as she accelerated into a full schedule at the start of 2026. He added, she's so popular. She has significant influence. She is an icon helping produce and launch brands. And now she is the guardian of the most powerful symbols in the British Crown's 1,000-year history. What sole guardian actually means? The word sole in this announcement is doing a significant amount of heavy lifting. Let's unpack what it actually means constitutionally, symbolically, and practically. The crown jewels are formally held in trust by the reigning monarch, managed on a day-to-day basis by historic royal palaces, the independent charity that runs the Tower of London and other royal sites. The Jewel House at the Tower of London has been the home of the crown jewels since the 17th century, guarded by the Eyman warders, the famous bee feeders, and protected by some of the most sophisticated security systems in the world. But the symbolic guardianship, the constitutional authority over these objects, the right to determine when and how they are used, who wears them, which ceremonies they appear in, that belongs to the monarch. By designating Catherine as sole guardian, King Charles is not merely giving her ceremonial access to pretty things in a tower. He is placing the institutional memory and physical continuity of the crown in her hands. He is saying with the weight of legal order behind him, when the monarchy transitions, these will go with you, not around you. It is an extraordinary act of trust. And given Charles's known perfectionism about the institution, he has spent his entire 77 years preparing to lead. It is not an act he would have taken lightly. The fact that this is a sole guardianship, not shared with William, not shared with Camilla, not divided among senior royals, speaks to something deeper than protocol. It speaks to succession. Because the crown jewels don't just go to the next monarch, they go to the next queen. And Catherine is going to be queen. Let me ask you something that we've been hearing more and more in the comments of royal content across the internet. Is Catherine already functioning as the de facto queen of the United Kingdom in everything but official title? Because when you add it all up, the tiaras, the royal warrants, the crown jewels guardianship, the state banquet appearances, the solo engagements, the public authority, the picture that emerges is unmistakable. Leave your honest answer below. And if you're watching this for the first time, make sure you're subscribed because what's coming next is the part that will genuinely change how you think about this monarchy. The constitutional mechanics, how this works. Some of you are going to be asking, can a king even do this? Can King Charles simply sign an order and hand over guardianship of objects this significant to someone who isn't yet queen? The short answer is yes. And here's why. The British monarchy operates not on a rigid written constitution. The UK has no codified constitution, but on centuries of convention, precedent, and the royal prerogative. The royal prerogative gives the sovereign extraordinary powers to act, especially in matters related to the crown estate and royal ceremonial objects, without requiring parliamentary approval. What Charles has done falls within that prerogative. He is the monarch. The crown jewels as regalia of the monarchy are fundamentally his to manage in terms of symbolic authority, and designating a future queen as their guardian, especially in a period where succession planning is no longer theoretical, is legally sound and historically defensible. What makes this unusual, what gives it the weight of the word emergency, is the speed and the formality. Typically, these kinds of symbolic handovers happen gradually, quietly over years. The fact that this has been formalized in a signed order rather than simply left as an informal arrangement tells us that someone somewhere in the palace legal structure felt it was important to make this legally binding rather than merely understood. That is not the behavior of a monarchy planning business, as usual. That is the behavior of a monarchy preparing for a transition. The historical weight. Guardians of the crown through history. To truly understand what King Charles has done, you have to understand what the crown jewels have represented through history. The original English crown jewels, some dating back to King Edgar's coronation in 973 AD, were destroyed by Oliver Cromwell in 1649. Cromwell's parliament ordered the regalia melted down, the gold repurposed, the gems sold. It was an act of deliberate desecration, an attempt to erase the physical symbols of monarchy itself. They failed. When King Charles II was restored to the throne in 1661, new regalia was commissioned. New crowns were made. New scepters were forged. A new coronation spoon, the only surviving item from before Cromwell's purge, was incorporated. And those items, continuously maintained, continuously used, have been at the heart of every British coronation since. The crown jewels have been stolen only once in recorded history, in 1671 by a man named Thomas Blood, who managed to smuggle the St. Edward's crown out of the Tower under a cloak before being caught. King Charles II remarkably pardoned him. Since then, the jewels have been guarded with increasing sophistication. The current jewel house underwent a major renovation that was completed around the time of Charles III's coronation in 2023 with a brand new exhibition space that opened to unprecedented public interest. But through all of this, through wars, through civil unrest, through the death of empires and the rise of republics, through abdications and assassinations, and the longest reign in British history, the symbolic guardianship of the crown jewels has always passed from one sovereign to the next. Until now, it has bypassed everyone in between. King Charles just changed that. The Camilla question and why this is more complicated than it looks. There is a dimension to this story that almost nobody is discussing, and it is the Camilla question. Camilla, Queen consort, and now Queen is Charles's wife. She is the current queen. If the crown jewels are to be handed to any woman in the royal family for guardianship, the conventional choice would be the sitting queen. And yet, it is Catherine who has received this order. What does that tell us? Royal watchers have long noted a succession question this imminent, this real, and this consequential. King Charles has done what any good custodian does. He has prepared. He has handed Catherine the royal warrants. He has elevated her to the Indian surlet. He has brought her into the center of state functions as a co-lead rather than a supporting figure. He has given her legal custodianship of the most sacred objects in British royal tradition. What comes next depends on factors that even the palace cannot fully control. The trajectory of Charles's health, the advice of his medical team, the counsel of his constitutional advisors, and perhaps most importantly, the king's own sense of when duty is best served by stepping forward rather than standing still. What we do know is this: the contingency plan, the plan that William and Catherine have reportedly had in place since 2024, is no longer a plan for a distant future. It is a plan for a near one. Royal sources confirmed as much in late 2025, saying that the Prince and Princess of Wales were keeping a close eye on events and were ready for whatever was required. Ready for whatever was required. Those words from people inside the palace tell you everything about the current state of the British monarchy. Catherine, Princess of Wales, cancer survivor, guardian of the crown jewels, grantaire of royal warrants, wearer of queen's tiaras, keeper of a 1,000-year tradition, is ready. The question that lingers, here's what I want to leave you with. History rarely announces itself. It does not send out press releases. It doesn't hold televised addresses. It happens in quiet rooms, in signed orders, in jewels placed on heads that weren't meant to carry them, yet until suddenly they were. King Charles III signing this order is a moment that most people will not even notice today. Most people will scroll past it. They'll see a headline about the crown jewels and think it's a human interest story. They'll think it's about diamonds and ceremonies and the quaint traditions of a very old institution. But you know better now because you stayed until the end. This is about power. This is about succession. This is about a king who is racing against time and a princess who has been forged in fire and a crown that has survived civil wars, revolutions, the death of empires, and a pandemic, and is about to pass to a new generation in circumstances that nobody fully anticipated. The question isn't whether Catherine will be queen. The question is how soon. And after everything you've just heard, I want you to think about this one last thing. When Catherine stands at her own coronation and that imperial state crown, the one she now guards, is placed upon her head, will this moment right now be the one people point to and say, that's when it really began? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this video with someone who needs to understand what is really happening inside the British monarchy right now. Hit the subscribe button, because this story is moving faster than anyone expected and you don't want to miss what comes next. We'll see you in the next one.